now not only the best of UniV2, of Curve, Convex, Vodium, but also UniV3, which to this date has been the undisputed volume king in DeFi. And that's where bringing Slipstream was really important. If this DEX was truly going to be that hub, we didn't just want to be the liquidity hub, we wanted to be the volume hub.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show spotlights the new concentrated liquidity AMM by Velodrome and Aerodrome called Slipstream. In this episode, we cover the growth of these popular V33 style AMMs, aiming to capture a significant portion of Uniswap's dominance, and how they've set an example for teams championing the anti-VC sentiment in DeFi with zero fees, no VC backing, and no team unlocks. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge podcast possible. Introducing Flat Money, the first decentralized, delta-neutral flatcoin built on Base with sustainable yield that's completely untethered from legacy finance. Because DeFi needs an uncensorable based unit of currency. You can mint unit with RETH, which is held in the protocol's shared liquidity pool, where it's borrowed by leveraged traders. As a leveraged trader, you can deposit your margin collateral and go long on RETH. If you're trading in the perpetual futures market, you'll pay unit holders to open leverage positions. If you're holding unit, you'll earn yield from liquidations, borrow rate, and trading fees. Preserve your purchasing power and offset your exposure to crypto market volatility. Learn more at flat.money. Tired of hopping between tabs, searching for new tokens before the hype catches on? Try MATCHA.XYZ, the DEX aggregator from 0x. Matcha connects hundreds of DEXs so you can trade millions of tokens and find fresh new drops. Matcha works out the best route to save you money on every trade. Swaps are free and Matcha has everything you need to trade on-chain. Gasless swaps, limit orders, and cross-chain, all in one place. Search Trade Done at matcha.xyz.
Introducing the MANTLE Liquid Staking Protocol, MANTLE LSP, a permissionless, non-custodial ETH liquid staking protocol deployed on Ethereum L1 and governed by MANTLE. With MANTLE LSP, users can stake ETH to instantly receive METH, earn yield and accumulate rewards the longer you stake. METH is the value accumulating receipt token that will give you access to expanded yield opportunities. Stake and watch your yield grow with MANTLE LSP.
Unlock liquid restaking and get exclusive rewards on KELP's road to 1 billion TVL. Restake Steph, ETHX, and native ETH for the liquid restaking token RSETH. Get exclusive rewards on top of regular rewards with KELP miles and Eigenlayer points. Use RSETH to earn with over 25 DeFi partners across 9 L2s. Learn more at kelpdao.xyz/restake.
It all started so simply with CryptoKitties and Maker on Ethereum, but quickly became complex with more applications and many chains. Today, everyone agrees UX issues are the biggest blocker standing in the way of crypto adoption. Introducing Avocado. Multi-chain UX redesigned from the ground up. The first wallet to abstract networks, accounts, and gas. One gas tank to pay transaction fees on all chains in USDC. And native access to INSTADAPP's powerful, custom DeFi strategies. Avocado, one wallet to rule all chains.
All right, let's introduce Alex and Ace, two contributors to Velodrome and Aerodrome. Guys, welcome to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, great to have you back, Alex and Ace. This is your first time, but we've known Ace for quite a while. And congrats on your new role with the team. I know you had recently joined full-time. Part of today's podcast is going to cover the rise of Velodrome and Aerodrome. These are two of the most popular, I think the two most popular V33 style AMMs in DeFi. They were launched during the bear market. They stand in opposition to a lot of the criticisms we're seeing with this anti-VC sentiment right now. And that goes to the fact that they have no VC backing. They charge no fees for all sorts of products that we're used to paying fees on. And there are no team unlocks. So all of the team's tokens, I believe, are locked up in like 4-year vesting types of contracts. They're basically locked up in vAero and vVelo. So another part of the story here is we're going to talk about Slipstream, which is their new concentrated AMM. That is contributing to them doing a greater portion of Uniswap's volume, and it looks like they're in a place to actually capture a more significant portion of that dominance. And so, guys, why don't we just talk first then a little more about the origin story of Velodrome, and like, what does it mean to be a V33 style AMM?
Happy to get started. Yeah. So if you are not already familiar with the lore, which I know everybody here very much is, but anybody watching who's not familiar with the lore, right? This whole journey really got started when Andre Cronje, at the sort of tail end of the last bull market, launched the Solidly exchange on Phantom. And when Andre built and launched that, he positioned it as a next generation decentralized exchange that brings together some of the best primitives of the best dexes, from the last cycle. So the best of Uniswap, the best of Curve, the best of Convex, all rolled into a single streamlined design and incentivization model. But we all know now in retrospect that there were some issues, with Solidly. It also launched, right around the moment Andre sort of took his break from DeFi, and all the sort of bear market stuff started going down. And so we basically looked at the model and we said, it certainly didn't seem like it went to plan on Phantom. We knew that if you took that model, if you made some adjustments to the core economics of it, fix some bugs in the code base, you continue to iterate on it, adding functionality similar to Vodium, on Curve, adding functionality like UniV3 style concentrated liquidity, and he found an ecosystem that was very much in need of the type of liquidity layer that it can provide, that we thought it could be very successful. So that was the origin of the launch of Velodrome on Optimism. And of course, Aerodrome is very much an adaptation of the same, what we're calling MetaDex design, right? Where you wrap in all the best features of all those other dexes. You launch it in a very fair, in a very compliant, very public good sort of way. And then its job is to basically serve as that primary economic and liquidity engine of an ecosystem. So of Optimism, and now not just Optimism and OP mainnet, but the Superchain, which I know we'll get into for a bit here. And then, of course, with Aerodrome, the primary liquidity layer of Base, which is, of course, just having extraordinary exponential growth at the moment.
Yeah, it's a very wholesome and organic genesis story, because none of the original team planned on launching Velodrome when they met each other. It was during the days of, like, do you remember VDAO and SolidDAO and all these big TVL protocols that decided to try and get a piece of Solidly in their NFT, scheme? The guys that met in the Velodrome or VDAO Discord were like, hey, we can put our heads together. We're all good strategists. We all have experience with, building good data analytics platforms and making good decisions that are data driven. And there's this awesome opportunity to launch on this Ethereum scaling solution, which was Optimism. And Optimism, it was in its early days. It was like maybe Synthetics and Uniswap had been deployed, but there was not much to do. And the opportunity was huge. And I think that was a really, really great decision by the original co-contributors to launch.
I'll add that as a user of Velodrome since launch, I think I got into Velodrome in the first 4 weeks or so. I have been voting now it's wild. I've been voting now every week for almost 2 years, then add an Aerodrome once that launched. And I've never had a token quite like Aero and Velo, where the utility, it not only feels like very natural to go in and vote, because I'm voting on pools to direct the token emissions to, but at the same time, I'm of course voting for where's the best trading fees that I can claim, where are the best bribes or incentives that I can collect. And, as a result, I'm incentivized to be very engaged with the protocol, at least to check in once a week, which, as we all know in DeFi, you got to keep your eye on the ball. And so, I'll disclose the fact that I'm holding both of these tokens and they are locked up for 4 years. And I have thought over and over and over again about, shouldn't I just keep maybe half of it and maybe lock the rest? But the fees are so big at this point and have been so attractive that I've locked all of my tokens, and now I'm at a point where I am collecting sizable fees. So it's a hell of a story once you actually experience it. And that I would encourage anyone, explore the apps and you will better understand the incentive design behind these protocols.
Yeah. It's cool because, in our view, it really is true DeFi, right? When a lot of new protocols launch, even very big ones, there's this idea that eventually they will get to an end state like this, right? And this is how DeFi is supposed to work, right? All of the rewards that a protocol generates should go to participants in that protocol. And people will take shortcuts or they'll slice and dice them, right? They'll have some rewards go to foundations or to team. They'll have some rewards split amongst other participants. They'll have allocations to pre-salers, to VCs, to all this sort of stuff, and all the ways in which this pie gets sliced up. But maybe, just using Uniswap as the example, they'll have this promise that, eventually, through governance, something like a fee switch might turn on in the future and change the economics of this protocol. But that's got to happen in the future. Or maybe eventually that team allocation, right, that team cut, that'll be turned off and it'll just go straight pure DeFi, right? And I think one of our early bets, and this was definitely riffing off of the ethos that Andre built into the original DEX design, right, and the original DEX launch, was that we wanted to be a public good from the very start, so that 100% of the rewards generated by the protocol go to participants, right? And it's utility based, as you said. It's an incentive for participation. This isn't just passive rewards. This is saying this protocol only works if the emissions are directed optimally, and your incentive for directing them optimally is a proportional cut of whatever you are voting for, on any given week. And that's, it was very risky for us. It was definitely a bit of a leap of faith, to not raise any money, to not carve ourselves off, just 5% of the total fees generated, or, something like that. It was truly this thing has to work for everybody for it to work for us, or it's going to work for nobody and it's not going to work at all. But I think, we very much, that leap of faith has been validated, right, in the success that you've seen. And when we launched, we could only dream of a scenario where you look at the token terminal, reward rankings for every DEX in DeFi. And when you add up Velodrome and Aerodrome on that list, it's more than every other DEX combined and several multiples, the amount of rewards that they are generating. But that is, I think, at least in part because of the nature of the design, that all of those rewards are going back into feeding the system. There's none of this rent seeking. There's not everybody taking off their little cut. It's not split amongst 5 or 10 different protocols, 5 or 10 different layers. And the simplicity of it, I think, also makes it accessible, right? To people like you, who you just I know, take my tokens, lock them, do this job, as part of the protocol, earn rewards. It's pretty simple.
I think it's like refreshing to see this model proven. Like, this can work. I can't say how hard it is. I obviously haven't been on the inside. I'm sure it's not an easy thing to not take money, maybe when it's being offered or available, but it's definitely a refreshing approach. And I've actually been curious, just kind of like the internal mechanism of how it actually works with your team. Like, are they kind of just treated just like DeFi farmers almost in a way? Like, do you guys just all lock your vVelo, your vAero, and then you have to just go to the app and click your buttons and make your votes? And is that how team members are being incentivized? Because that's how I have it in my head, but I'm not sure if that's wrong.
I just joined the team so I can give some unique perspective on this. We are all the total rewards of Velodrome essentially is going to a foundation, and the foundation is responsible for paying salaries, growing, strategically, deciding where to, essentially allocate funds if necessary. But none of us have individual token allocations that were provided by the foundation, by the original distribution mechanism. I have personal bags, but of course I had to buy those myself or farm those myself. This is a very, to use a colloquial term in crypto, it's extremely egalitarian and meritocratic. We are all kind of working together, and we're compensated, which gives us a peace of mind, obviously, during these tumultuous markets. But at the end of the day, we know that the long-term success of ourselves depends on the long-term success of the protocol. And the protocol is servicing our partners who are looking for a solution to get liquidity to their desired needs, for individual traders to have access to the tokens they want at low cost, or essentially low slippage, and we also decided to deploy on layer 2s because we know long-term fees will have to come down in order for this stuff to really scale. So yeah, it feels like a job, but we really love it. Like, I've worked in Web3 for several years, but I'm working alongside people who are very motivated, in an extremely flat organization. We all know what we're good at, and we all know what each other is good at. And there's really no like hierarchical structure that you see sometimes when you have like founders with big allocations, and people with vested token supply that they could unlock, and essentially sell if they get to their vesting in the market is doing well. That's just not part of the ethos here, and it's very refreshing.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I mean, put simply, the foundations and us as individuals, we're just token lockers like any other token lockers, and so our incentives are totally aligned with any other person who chooses to go out and locks their token. And at least for me, that helps me, sleep really well at night. Exactly to Ace's point, there was this interesting thing I read last night on Twitter about the Tornado devs and some of the conversations that are coming out as part of the lawsuit. And, when their liquid tokens were coming to vest, the perverse incentives it created for them to, quote unquote, pump the token and all that sort of stuff. And I feel so much better knowing that we only succeed if the DEX continues to succeed, and we succeed through the exact same mechanism any participant in the system succeeds. Because ultimately, this is about building a sufficiently decentralized system whereby even if this team were to disappear, the whole thing keeps working. There's enough people a part of it, incentivized to continue to contribute to it, that it works very, very effectively. And I've had some people call me stupid for this. I think when people look at Aerodrome achieving curve levels of success, but they don't see the team going out and buying mansions all over the world, they kind of go, "You dum-dum, you did the thing, you like, why aren't you?" And I just feel so much better about how we've structured it. And exactly to Ace's point, like the whole team on the same playing field. We're not having to look over each other's shoulders. We're not have to worry about token unlocks, nor do we have like VCs breathing down our necks trying to optimize things for their big unlocks, right? And I think in the last week, right, we've seen how perverse that can get when you have a bunch of stakeholders holding a bunch of tokens, and ultimately all of them are just trying to optimize for that big exit moment. There is no big exit moment on Velodrome or Aerodrome.
Yeah, I want to call out that alignment with token holders is why Velodrome and Aerodrome, even when the market caps of either project were like sub 25 million, like if you're listening to this, I mean, just know like Velodrome sat sub 20 million, near 10 million for a very long time. And then Aerodrome, oh my gosh, Aerodrome sat there for a very long time as well. And that created an opportunity for people who wanted to get involved to get involved. And I think this is the thing that you're calling out, Alex, it feels wrong with the industry right now. It feels like, and it's probably a symptom of the bull run, is these so many projects, they raise big rounds, they raise from VCs and angels, and in some cases those rounds just get to be so large, and at that point there's so much upside that's already been captured, and now it just looks like some crypto Frankenstein version of like an IPO. So now folks who, for example, want to get into EigenLayer, I have no idea where this Eigen token is going to end up, but they've raised at billions of dollars. It's going to be a high, fully diluted valuation. It's going to be a low circulating market cap. And I just feel like it's antithetical to like the sort of permissionless, equal opportunity, trustless, ability to transact in crypto. And so anyways, long story short is this: it has not been easy. The Velodrome Aerodrome story has really, I think, been a challenging one. I, for one, was very at odds when you guys first launched Aerodrome. I was thinking, I just don't know why you want to split your attention right now. I'm worried. Like Velodrome was gaining a lot of momentum, and in the end, you saw where the puck was going with Base, and I mean now you all look like geniuses for having made that move. And meanwhile, folks that saw opportunity there were able to get in. And again, I think that is a story for people to get on board with DeFi, with crypto. We all don't want to be buying tokens at multi-billion-dollar valuations, hoping for a 2 or 3x. We want to get in and hope for potential 100x. And that is still very possible if teams are launching at lower valuations with less of a need to launch at such a high FDV.
One of the things that you mentioned was you have experienced the power of the flywheel firsthand by going in and checking different incentives across the various pools you can vote for on a weekly basis, tangibly collecting the yield, the rewards. And, you see that there is a real product market fit for Velodrome and Aerodrome. So it's extremely tangible, and, it's easy to build conviction in something when you see the growth firsthand, when you feel the growth, when you see the rewards on your screen, versus, say, a new data availability layer with a 20 billion valuation. It's like, what are they actually solving? Like, what's the massive problem here? Sure, I might be able to read a long form research paper that was sponsored, for 5 figures at a major, like, popular publication. Like, I could name many, but I won't. But you don't actually feel the tangible benefits from that. Sometimes I even question myself, is like, am I stupid? What am I missing here? And then when you go look at, say, the actual realized fees from one of these data availability layers or new fast and slick, parallelized EVM layer ones, and you're like, wait a second, they only collected $1 million in fees. They've been around for 3 years, and their valuation is over $10 billion. Aerodrome just hit $50 million in fees, and it's been around for under a year. So, I mean, I can actually feel how useful it is. And I mean, it helps build conviction for sure. I think a lot of the, major DeFi giga brains are probably still trying to figure out how this works, which is we've been overlooked. But all the partners that we work with are extremely satisfied. They appreciate the attention that we provide to make sure that their liquidity needs are being met. They've taken advantages of the very, I would say, generous and pragmatic programs that Alex and the team have structured in order to really involve them in this flywheel process. And it comes down to we've built a sticky protocol for liquidity providers, for partners who are onboarding their liquidity. And the network effects that we're seeing from that, I think, have been extremely beneficial. We've already eclipsed 50% of the TVL on Base, and I think we're all excited about potentially how big Base could get.
I want to lean into Base a little bit more, but I've been seeing Alex's tweets, and I've been doing double takes on them. Are those numbers really? Are they really doing that much? So to your point of being overlooked, I think you've kind of caught a lot of people off guard, and people are somewhat surprised. But maybe we can kind of dive deeper into the things that are moving the needle. So as an outsider watching this growth and this kind of evolve and happen, to me, it's been Base for sure, but also Slipstream. So maybe one of you can kind of define what Slipstream is, how it's working, how it's competing maybe with Uniswap and some of these other bigger players. And then just, I know this is a long question, but kind of just speak to the importance of Base and where you see that going as well.
Yeah. I mean, maybe just starting there. And, you hit on it a little bit at the beginning, but, we believed, as soon as we learned about Base and connected with the team, we believed it would be one of, if not the leading layer 2 scaling solutions, right? When Coinbase, billion-dollar publicly traded company says, we're going to build on Ethereum, we're going to build on the optimistic superchain, and our goal is to bring our business and users on chain. We took that deathly seriously. And, we looked around at every other L2, many of which have come, knocking on our doors. And we just said, there's nothing like this. We think that they're going to deliver. And so now that seems very smart. But, it wasn't the popular opinion. I think for some time, people worry about Fed chain. Are these guys really going to know how to build in DeFi, truly on chain, all that sort of stuff? I think all those fears are gone, and their growth has been absolutely parabolic. And I do not think it'll be long before they hit that level of being the largest L2 by TVL. They've already, at points passed Ethereum mainnet, passed Arbitrum on transactions, on volume. So, it's already coming to fruition. So then, if we just assume it makes sense to be there, it's kind of, in what form? And there was one aspect that was very important, which was the fact that Base was not going to have a token. So Base uses uses Ethereum for gas, right? So that's one function often of a chain token. It uses the OP token for governance, not big DAO votes sort of governance, literally governance upgrades of the chain. And Coinbase made a big deal with Optimism to acquire a large, basically allocation of Optimism tokens. So they've got a big voice in the collective. But the piece that's missing from that, if you have your gas token, you have your governance token, is the incentivization token. And so what was going to be the token that helped to attract users, liquidity providers, and basically help to power the economic engine of Base? And that's where Aero came in. And that's part of the reason why, we felt it needed a dedicated token, a dedicated DEX. But once you are that primary economic engine, I think it was going to be it was almost a foregone conclusion that our success would look very similar to our success on Optimism. And that basically looks like any new project launching on Optimism is launching on Velodrome, right? That TVL grows to be multiples of every other DEX combined on Optimism. That outside of trading, on maybe 5 core ecosystem pairs, like your RETH, your stable pair, USDC, DAI, things like that all of the activity, trading activity of that ecosystem, incentive activity, was going to happen on that central liquidity layer, in this case, Aerodrome. But if this DEX was truly going to be that hub, we didn't just want to be the liquidity hub. We wanted to be the volume hub. If this is going to be the biggest L2 in the world. And that's where bringing Slipstream was really important. So Slipstream, if you're not familiar, is basically our novel adaptation of UniV3 style concentrated liquidity. And what do we know from the last few years? UniV3 style concentrated liquidity is not the best solution for all liquidity. It is not the best solution for many projects looking to build liquidity. But it is very, very good for the most high volume, highest usage, tons of trading fees sort of pairs. And those represent a large proportion of the total volume in DeFi just generally. So we knew we needed a solution there. We've been working on Slipstream for a long time. We didn't take anything off the shelf. This wasn't something we licensed from somebody else. This was adapted from UniV3 and all of the reward mechanisms built from scratch. It's entirely on-chain. A lot of other UniV3 forks you see out there do off-chain computation for rewards and sort of things like that. We skewed going that direction at all. We wanted to build it according to our decentralized ethos. But what essentially that has enabled, right, is bringing under that MetaDEX umbrella now not only the best of UniV2, of Curve, Convex, Vodium, but also UniV3, which to this date has been the undisputed volume king in DeFi, and now offers us the ability to combine what we know is our unique ability to attract major TVL differentials, 2-3 times more than Uniswap, but combine that with similar trading execution on those top pairs. And so this is where it gets really exciting of what happens when a DEX, and you don't see this anywhere else in DeFi, what happens in a DEX when a DEX has a 2-3x TVL differential on Uniswap and swap equivalents, right? I think what we're speculating on, what we're starting to see the beginnings of, is that DEX starts to capture a rising share of the total volumes. Because in the end, there's more active liquidity on something like RETH, USDC, on Velodrome or Aerodrome than there is on Uniswap. And that liquidity is earning a consistent, predictable stream of rewards. And as it captures more of the total volume, fees on Uniswap start to drop, right? Because if aggregators are starting to route through our system, the fees are being generated here. The value proposition of providing liquidity on Uniswap, which is propped up only by the fees it generates in very, inconsistent ways, starts to drop, and you create kind of a negative flywheel effect on liquidity on Uniswap and a positive flywheel effect on something like Velodrome and Aerodrome. And that's where I think we have something very, very special. The last time I think DeFi generally was speculating on this was the idea of, could Curve V2 combine this like liquidity advantage and take on UniV3? That did not end up being the case. I think we've got a legitimate sort of opportunity here to do that. And, I am religiously updating all of our Dune dashboards every day and just watching this climb up in volume, fees, and market share. And here's the most exciting thing. When we're talking about doing 30-40% of Uniswap volumes right now. That's with one or two aggregators online. Not even the big ones. No 1inch, no OX protocol, no Kyber. And we know that most of the sources of volume on Uniswap for these, for Optimism and Base are bots and market makers. So it's folks like Wintermute, OKX, and others who, once they adapt their bots over, we should see the same level of activity on Velodrome and Aerodrome, and I think it gets very exciting.
DeFi enables a whole new world of trading and yield opportunities. Sometimes we all wish we had a little bit bigger of a budget so we can make the most out of it. That's why we created Blueberry. Blueberry lets you access the best opportunities on Ethereum all in one easy-to-use terminal. You can access 5x, 10x, or even 20x your money in one click, more than any other lending market, so you can maximize your earnings. Only on Blueberry.
Guys, I'd love for one of you to maybe define what the superchain means. It's a term that I think is thrown around a lot, but I'm sometimes not sure that people are totally grasping, I guess, the magnitude of it or what it affords being part of the superchain really means. So yeah, if one of you could kind of just dissect that a little bit and explain the importance of it, that'd be great.
So OP Labs is building out a tech stack that enables very quick and robust deployments and essentially support for Ethereum layer 2 chains for optimistic rollups. They've already, clearly Optimism mainnet's been live for a couple of years. That's where Velodrome makes our home. And in the very near future, there are going to be many, many more layer 2s that are essentially built on the OP stack. The idea is, as far as, it gets cheaper and easier to essentially deploy your own layer 2, whether you're an application or a general purpose blockchain. The long-term vision is to have all of these chains live side by side and interoperate or interact essentially as a chain of chains. So you'll be able to provide all of the benefits of an optimistic rollup, having the security of Ethereum's base layer carried down into the layer 2, far lower fees, far faster transactions, and much more efficient use of liquidity. So I'll give you an example. Right now, the closest thing that we've seen to this is kind of how the Cosmos ecosystem has evolved. And Cosmos has always strived to have this IBC, the inter blockchain communication protocol, where you can actually move tokens, native tokens, across chains, as long as they're built on the Cosmos SDK. That is essentially the idea for the Optimism Superchain. It's going to be a much more efficient process for chains to spin up liquidity, for example. We want to be able to enable token liquidity across lots and lots of chains without having lots and lots of pools. And I think, that's part of our long-term vision, is to have a single kind of liquidity hub that services the entire superchain. Alex, I probably left some things out if you want to chime in additional kind of advantages of the superchain.
I mean, I think in the shortest form, the superchain is the most compelling vision for Ethereum scaling that we've seen yet, right? We know for crypto to work, for DeFi to work, for Ethereum to work, it has to feel as seamless as using the internet feels, where you don't know, on what internet protocols you are accessing as you jump between different web experiences. All you know is that you are using the internet. And I think for amazing games to develop, social layers to develop, DeFi to develop, DeFi has to feel the same way. But that can't all happen on a single monolithic blockchain. So the superchain is about connecting together all of these different layer 2 stacks in a way that when you're interacting with them, whether it's, NFTs on Zora or DeFi on Mode or WorldCoin or anything like that, that all of the complexity of that is abstracted away. And I think what's so interesting about it right now is, you don't have to take our word for the fact that this is the most compelling and most tangible vision for Ethereum scaling. You just need to look at the people who are betting on it and building on top of it. Coinbase, Zora, Farcaster, WorldCoin, Frax, Mode, Lisk, et cetera, right? Like everyone is choosing to sign up to participate in the Superchain. Everyone is signing up to participate in the funding of public goods using sequencer revenue from all of these. And so it is truly, I think, creating a federation of aligned parties under the umbrella of the Optimism Collective, united around this sort of single Ethereum scaling solution and this unified experience that we'll be seeing the beginnings of it coming to life in the next few months. And you'll see our first deployments in a matter of weeks here. But over the next few years, I think this is where Ethereum and all of the builders that support Ethereum are going to be going to build. It's where all the users are going to be coming. Coinbase is going to be bringing straight onto the Superchain, right? And I think that is where things get very exciting, such that, the experience of using DeFi, of using crypto, looks very different in a few years, thanks to, in no small part, the broader optimistic Superchain.
I definitely take for granted at times just like how far we've come. And I was actually voting for token emissions, voting for pools last night for Aerodrome and Velodrome. And, the ability to transact within seconds, the ability to transact for as little as a few cents. I still marvel at that because I was paying 25 to 50 cents to $1, and that was a huge improvement over mainnet. So we've come very far, and if you haven't tried Velodrome or Aerodrome, it's a great time to revisit these. So guys, this is a good place for us to wrap up. I want to remind our listeners then that they should get started learning about Velodrome and Aerodrome by going to velodrome.finance or aerodrome.finance. You can find that in our show notes. Follow Velodrome.FI and Aerodrome.FI on Twitter. Those are the mothership accounts there with all the pertinent announcements. You should follow Alex on Twitter at WagMeAlexander, and then Ace is at Ace_duh_book. Guys, thanks for coming on. Just congrats on all the excitement lately. There's been so much growth in both volume and, of course, in the base of token holders, and obviously the market caps have gone up a lot. I want to just end, though, with Alex, could you summarize for us, if I'm new to Velodrome or Aerodrome, what's the one thing you want folks to understand? Like maybe what's the legacy here of these two protocols, even though we're about 1 to 2 years in?
Yeah, I mean, I just think they are a great way to get started in DeFi or to get started on layer 2s. When I reflect on my own journey, right, how I started was providing liquidity on pools, earning tokens, looking at those tokens, being like, what can I do with them? Doing those things, earning more token rewards. All right, what do I do with these? And so I think whether you are, a DeFi veteran or you are relatively new, these protocols that return, 100% of the rewards that they create to participants that operate on these networks with extremely low gas fees, exactly as you were saying, right? It's just a great way to play around, figure out what kind of participant in DeFi you want to be. You could just be a farmer. You could be a locker. You could be directing emissions. You could go even deeper. You could write threads about it, whatever. I think hopefully our legacy is that we've helped to bring new users to layer 2s like Optimism and Base, helped to bring new projects and protocols, and created a very fair, decentralized system for everybody to participate and be a part of scaling this thing, of course, that we're all incredibly passionate about.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And for future episodes of the Edge podcast, please check out our link tree at edge_pod.